You told yourself last time was the last time. And you meant it. You really did. You woke up the next morning with that quiet, clear-eyed certainty. This is done. I'm done. And then something happened. Something small, maybe. A conversation that went wrong, a feeling you couldn't name, a moment of silence that got too loud. And you found yourself back there again. Not because you're weak, not because you don't care enough, but because something in you needed somewhere to go, and it knew exactly where. That's not failure, that's a map. And Carl Jung spent his entire life learning how to read it. You are not broken. Whatever you keep returning to, whatever has its hooks in you, it didn't find you because you're damaged. It found you because you're human. Because somewhere along the way, your nervous system learned that this thing, whatever it is, made the unbearable feel bearable, made the noise go quiet, made you feel for a moment like yourself again, or like nothing at all. And sometimes nothing at all is what you desperately needed. Jung believed that addiction was never really about the substance or the behavior. It was always about what it was doing underneath, always about the hunger it was feeding. And that hunger, he said, is spiritual in nature. Not religious, spiritual, the deep, aching human need to feel whole, to feel connected, to feel like you are more than the sum of your pain. That need is not a flaw, it is the most human thing about you. Think about when it starts, not the moment you reach for it, but the moment before that, the specific quality of feeling that precedes it. For some people it's loneliness that has no obvious cause. For others it's the particular exhaustion of performing okayness all day long. For others it's a memory or a silence, or the way the evening light falls and suddenly something aches without explanation. Jung had a name for the place that ache comes from. He called it the shadow, the part of the self that carries everything you were taught not to feel, not to show, not to be. The anger that wasn't allowed, the grief that had nowhere to go, the need for connection that felt too dangerous to admit. Over time, the shadow doesn't disappear, it deepens, and it finds expression wherever it can. Addiction, Jung believed, is often the shadow speaking the only language it was ever given. It's not destruction for its own sake. It's a voice that was never taught any other words. There's a letter Jung wrote late in his life to the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, in which he said something that stopped people cold. He said that the craving for alcohol was, on a low level, the equivalent of the spiritual thirst for wholeness, that what the addicted person is really seeking, in the deepest part of themselves, is union, transcendence, the feeling of being, briefly, free from the weight of being only themselves. This doesn't make the behavior safe, but it makes it understandable in a way that changes everything. Because when you stop seeing the addiction as the enemy and start seeing it as a messenger, exhausted, misguided, desperate, but a messenger nonetheless, something shifts. You stop fighting yourself, and you start, for the first time, listening. But here's the part nobody tells you. The addiction isn't just about escaping pain. It's also about escaping the self that feels responsible for that pain. The self that believes somewhere very quietly and very deeply that the hurt is deserved, that the emptiness makes sense, that this, whatever this is simply what you are. Jung called this the most dangerous lie the psyche tells itself. Not the dramatic lies, the quiet ones, the ones that feel like facts, the ones you've carried so long they don't even feel like beliefs anymore. They just feel like reality. And the substance, the behavior, the thing you return to, it numbs that voice just enough to function, just enough to get through the day. It's not weakness. It's a coping mechanism that once, at some point, worked. The tragedy isn't that it worked. The tragedy is that it stopped working, and the nervous system didn't get the memo. When you're young and something becomes a refuge, it becomes home. That's the word for it, home. Not a good home, necessarily, Not a safe home, always, but a familiar one. And the nervous system, above almost anything else, craves the familiar. It will return to what it knows, even when what it knows is hurting it, because familiar pain has edges you can predict. Unknown peace doesn't. As you get older, the relationship with the thing changes. What once felt like freedom starts to feel like a cage you built yourself and then forgot you had the key to. The behavior that once silenced the noise starts creating its own. And there's a particular grief in that, in realizing that the thing you ran toward for safety has become its own source of danger. Jung understood this grief. He didn't pathologize it. He said it was, in its own way, a form of awakening. The moment you feel the cage is the moment you're ready to see the door. There's a metaphor that keeps returning when you sit with Jung's ideas long enough. The addiction is like a fire you lit in a cold room a long time ago. It was necessary then. It was warmth. It was survival. And you've been feeding it ever since. Not always because you want to, but because the room got built around it. Because you forgot what the room felt like before the fire. Because the smoke became the familiar smell of home. You don't have to tear down the room. You don't have to hate the fire. You just have to begin, slowly and without judgment, to wonder what else might bring warmth. Not instead of the fire, just alongside it. Just enough to remember that you have options, that you always had options, that the cold was never the whole story. Jung never shamed the people he worked with, not once. He believed that the psyche always moves toward healing, when given the conditions to do so. That the same force driving someone back to the thing that hurts them is the same force, slightly redirected, that drives people toward meaning, toward love, toward wholeness. The craving and the longing are made of the same material. They just found different doors. Whatever you're carrying, whatever has its grip on you, it is not a verdict on your character. It is not evidence of your unworthiness. It is the record of a self that needed something and found the best answer it had at the time. That self deserves understanding far more than it deserves judgment. You already know that. Somewhere underneath everything, you already know that. Jung just wanted to make sure you remembered